Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Janice. How are you?
Great, great. So, thanks for joining me. So this is my interview series. What we're doing is we are talking to different adults and finding out some of their math stories. I found that when I was teaching children fifth grade math, um, I I saw 160 children a day. Half of them did real well. Half of them really struggled with the basics. And when I spoke to parents, and I spoke to many parents over the year, I asked them a lot about what their math stories were, and I heard a lot of situations where people, for better for worse, were really into math or really turned off from to math at a very early age, and there were a lot of interesting stories as to why. And I thought I'd do the series just to find out what math stories are for different people in different professions. So
Mhm.
without any further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us what your math story is.
Yeah. Well, I currently am a professor and director of the School of Animal and Comparative Biomedical Sciences at the University of Arizona. And so I've been in the science field for, oh gosh, 30 years or more. And that makes me feel very old, but that's the fact since I started in school. So yes, math was always a challenge. My first memory of math actually is something that it was like a sort of midterm exam that we had in fourth grade, and
Mhm.
I failed that exam. So the memories that I have is going to a different day, a different room, and having to take that exam again, and the stress of
Mhm.
making it right, not fail again. So yeah, I think at those days math was not explained properly. There was also the fear of the teacher. The teachers were very abstract and they could not help students connect with the
Mhm.
real world and how math can help. But in spite of that, I wanted to pursue a science field, and I knew that math, physics, and chemistry were going to be, there, waiting for me, and I needed to overcome them. Uh,
Mhm.
Never had problems with physics or chemistry, but math was always a challenge. It continued to be a challenge in high school. My parents always made sure that I had a mentor or a tutor, after school that I would go and solve my problems. And it was very interesting because these tutors, what they did was what the teachers at school would not do.
Mhm.
Simplify the processes, dissect, the equations, and help us understand what to do. There was a lot of repetition at that time,
Mhm.
and, uh, and so that's how I went through. I use math, for a lot of things in my career. There are always calculations. Even when you are doing chemistry, you need to use, some basic algebra,
Mhm.
the and daily operations, budgets. So I see math everywhere all the time. Um, it's very little, that we apply, at least in my world, from what I took. I took several calculus, algebra classes,
Mhm.
trigonometry, and so very few concepts remain applicable, for daily operations.
Mhm.
But I think it's important to keep them live. And and as a parent, I always wanted to make sure that my kids didn't have the fear for math. And so I would always try to coach them and support them and the best way possible, with just making it fun, and
Mhm.
making it something that it was like a game, you know
Mhm.
and putting that in the context of, this is a game, we'll play the rules. There was a reward for completing
Mhm.
the task, but making it fun, and if it was tedious, the homework itself, I wouldn't push them to finish it all at once. I say, let's split it, let's do this now and later this other exercise.
That's
So
great. So that's great. So your experience really influenced how you handled your kids, and so how do they do with math? How are they?
They both did very well, you know. I have to say that my oldest one, he had some tutors because things were not clicking for him,
Mhm,
and especially in middle school.
mhm,
And his mind completely changed, and he became, you know, very good at math to the point that he chose a career that where math is key for what he does on a daily basis. My second child, he never really experienced difficulty in math. It was, you know, a kind of an obvious thing, and
mhm.
he just went fine without, you know, additional help.
What do you think the turning point was for your older son? What do you think made that switch for him? You know, when
So
he
I
went
think
from
it was a combination of two things. One was that he had a good, and again, this is probably in his freshman year in high school, he had a great teacher and very inspirational, and so made things fun for him or more, you know, comprehensive. So that helped. And then I
Mhm.
think it was also his brain, because it was amazing. It was from the
Interesting.
night that he changed, you know. He went through different programs where they have all these exercises and repetition,
Mhm.
and he hated that as well, you know, to the point that he created a song to express himself. How much he hated math and the place where I was making him go and practice.
Mhm. But do you think that repetition had something to do with like that automaticity, that recall improving? Do you think that made things easier to actually do, even though he didn't enjoy it? Do you think that made it actually easier for him to work on the problems that he had to work on so that he actually ended up
Yeah,
liking it more?
I think so. I think that's important. You know, practice makes perfect. And, you know, sometimes you need to practice things many times to make them work. So I think that, yeah, that is good. I'm not saying that repetition is bad. You know, maybe, you know, like I said, it's maybe how the work is presented.
Yeah.
Some could still have repetition, but like I said, that's my strategy was to split the work. You know,
Mhm.
okay, do 2 or 3 equations or problems now. Let's focus on something else. You know, sometimes I would give him a reward like a sticker or something, or I would tell him, you know, you will complete so many points, and this would mean something at the end of the week or the day, and so the reward system helped.
Mhm.
Um,
If you had to give one piece of advice to a young parent regarding math, what would you tell them?
I think well, I would tell them what I didn't experience myself. My mom always, you know, said I hate math. Math was bad. I hated math. And I think her saying that put us in a defensive way.
Mhm,
So you know, to not, you know, take things just right, and fear, right?
mhm.
uh, I think for me was the fear of failure, not succeeding.
Interesting.
So
Uh-huh.
I would, you know, tell them, you know, don't transfer your negative experiences in a negative way that then you are kind of like, you know, making your kids think like the way you did it, when in reality they could have a different experience. Reverse your negative experience with positive thoughts, and, you
Mhm.
know, like in a way that, you know, it makes it positive for your children, you know,
Yeah.
and let them
Yeah.
know, yeah, practice makes perfect, you know, and
Yeah.
so
I mean, that's really interesting. I heard that so many times where, I would have a child and a parent in a room and we'd be talking about strategies, and the parent would say right in front of the child how they weren't good at math, and that probably gave, somehow through osmosis or DNA gave it to their
yeah,
child, which really wasn't
yeah,
true. And it was a shame because the kids came into, well, they were already in fifth grade, but they already had that mindset of it wasn't a
yeah,
subject for them, which was a shame because they really were quite capable of performing really really well. So
yeah. And, you know, and in the very early years, you know, with, you know, basic math like addition, subtractions, you know, multiplications, we work with real objects, you know, like, you know, M&Ms, you know, gummy bears,
yeah.
toys that they had, you know. And so, you know, even when we're learning Venn diagrams, you know, a rope, a piece of rope, and connect the things and
Mhm.
group, put them together. So
Yeah.
those things, you know, turn the exercise into a fun
Yeah,
activity.
that's
And
great. I think people can learn a lot from the things that you did and from your
yeah,
stories. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your stories. They're great and insightful, and I think really fun to hear, and I think they'll be really helpful for other people. So,
wonderful.
so,
Thank you,
so
Janice, for the opportunity.
oh, sure. Thank you. Thanks so
You
much, and
too.
have a great weekend.
Take care. You too.
Bye bye.